What's that?
I forgot to pick up.
We were lining, actually John was chipping, and we were right on the side of the green. He laid his putter down, and the other guy in our foursome nudges
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning. Welcome to the September 20th, 2018 meeting for the Shawnee County Board of Commissioners. My name is Kevin Cook. I serve as the chair of the Shawnee County Commission. Joining me today is Commissioner Shelley Bueller. Good morning. Good morning. And Commissioner Bob Archer. Good morning.
Good morning.
Madam Chair, our first item.
Oh, I think it's Madam Clerk, but that's okay. I got a promotion. He called me Madam Chair. That's okay. I don't mind that. It was all that numbers thing, wasn't it?
Turn me off.
Number one, proclamations presentation regarding the Kansas Expo Center's financial report as of July 31st, 2018. Kellen Seitz.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kellen Seitz, Inspector of Venue Management in the Kansas Expo Center. As a continued effort to share our financial results with you, this is our quasi quarter two report. Our quarter one ended in April, so not exactly a quarter. However, this is for the last 3 months, May, June, and July. I will start off with year-to-date event revenues. So year-to-date event revenues for the year is just under $1.1 million. Our budgeted goal for year-to-date revenues was $1.16 million, a variance of about $74,000 towards the negative on that. And there's a couple reasons why. In July, we had budgeted events that did not take place until August, and then we have some additional events that were budgeted earlier in the year that will take place later in the year in October and November. So you'll see that number kind of climb back up to about a level playing field come November and quarter 3-4 financials. So just wanted to give you an update there. Year-to-date expenses, we have a very healthy savings in year-to-date expenses, a positive variance in those savings of about $180,000. A lot of that is coming from our restructure of staffing efficiencies and how we operate and staff not only events but our just our routine days in the office and controlling overtime hours and consumption of that. Another big piece of that is operational overhead expense and utilities, which are down in oftentimes parts of the way we manage and operate the facility from a utilities consumption standpoint, and also from a trade variance from partnership sponsorship revenues with things like landscape maintenance and those other portions of the business that we've been able to negotiate those rates down. So again, a very healthy savings in year-to-date expenses. One of the areas that we've talked a lot about over the last year, and one of the areas that we're really proud of is our sales and partnerships revenue for the year. So and this is through the end of August, not through the end of July. We actually produce those numbers a little bit quicker than we produce our monthly financials, so I wanted to give a snapshot through the end of August on this one. Through the end of August, we have $316,998 in partnership sponsorship revenue. If you recall, when we took over management of the Expo Center on September 1st, 2017, there were $63,183 in partnerships revenues that were attained at the date we came in. We finished that 2017 year at $122,376 in partnerships revenue, but that's a positive variance versus last year in the amount of $194,622. So something that we're continually putting achievement and effort towards growing that segment of our business. And since we took over September 1 of 2017, our partnerships revenues are up 502%. So something that we're, again, very proud of.
Commissioner Archer?
Oh, yep.
Kellen, what does that include? And why are we being so successful with the partnership revenue?
Sure. A dedicated position is first and foremost.
Okay.
We have, when we were working our way through the RFP and management opportunity of the facility, we noticed an opportunity that wasn't currently being utilized at the facility, and that was a director of partnerships or director of sales and partnerships. That person on our staff, his name is Kyler Tarwater. He came on board with us right when we took over management, I think the second or third week of September. So he's about as fresh in our building as we are young in our building. So he's a true asset. And really it's just effort and change in the marketplace. I think what we've been able to do with securing some pretty positive bookings and some very attractive events, and in addition to extending current tenant agreements and adding additional tenant agreements, the market viability for those partners to get their branding awareness in front of our patrons is continuing to grow every day. The more events we bring in, the more annual attendance numbers we have, the better partnership branding efforts with those advertisers we're able to give them. So,
But these are local businesses
Correct.
that are supporting events that we have coming into the Expo Center.
correct.
Okay.
Just trying to think through. There are a couple that are national brands. We did just secure an advertising partnership with Red Bull, so all those Red Bull lovers can enjoy their energy drinks at the events. But most of those, to your point, yes, are local companies and local advertisers with our building.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
One thing we always like to do in these updates is kind of highlight one of the major events that took place through that quarter and show you how that event did against our budgeted goals for that event. So as you can see in the right column there, we had budgeted for a total net event income revenue of $23,516. We were actually almost able to double that. We brought in a net revenue to the building, $41,814, and part of that is due to our increased marketing efforts and just branding awareness for those events. But a large part of that is also due to the trend in ticket type sales. We noticed this in our concert in August as well. We've been selling our tickets at a little bit higher average ticket price than what we have been projecting, which is not usual. It's slightly unusual, but it is having an effect, a positive effect on those net revenues for those events. So one thing that we're doing to continually break that down is, since those tickets are so attractive in the marketplace, is offering a few more of those tickets on those events as we continue to build those events out into the future. As I talked about last week, we have 5 event on sales and 6 announcements coming up over the next 5 weeks. And those are efforts that we've taken into building what we call our ticket scaling for those events, and offering those more attractive tickets on a higher level to more of our patrons, since they are in a little bit higher demand. But that positive variance in the budgeted revenue for Paw Patrol Live was just over $18,000. This next slide is one I wanted to take some time focusing on and explaining. There's a lot of numbers up here, so I'll do my best to go through and clarify these. We'll start with the blue column. The blue column is our year-to-date operating expenditure. Okay, so we operate on a deficit every year, and that deficit for through the end of July was $393,209. Our budgeted operating deficit through July was $498,441. So there's a positive budget variance there of about $105,000. What that means to a lot of the average public and our Shawnee County taxpayers is that we have saved versus budget for this year through the end of July $105,000 of taxpayer money to operate the facility. One area I did want to focus on is the change over the past 2 years through July. So through July of 2017, the operating subsidy was $650,942. Since just July of last year, we've been able to save county taxpayer dollars on the operating subsidy of this facility over $250,000, and that's just in 1 year. And if we go back to 2016, the 2016 budget variance is nearly $300,000. So you're seeing a very valid approach to the effort that we're taking in managing that facility and reducing that operating subsidy. One of the key elements that we tried to focus on and that we presented to you during the RFP was our fiscal responsibility to drive down that operating subsidy through areas of event growth and event revenue growth, but also growth in our other segments like partnership revenues and those types of areas that we saw opportunity. And I hope you can see that, and we see that, but we're very proud through the end of July of where we stand, and we only continue to hope that that grows better and that variance grows larger. So that's all I have.
Any questions for Kellen?
No questions, but great news. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Very good.
Commissioner Archer?
Yeah, I think it's outstanding myself. I recall when we were negotiating the contract with Spectra, we had two options. I think one was a conservative option where we had sort of a set subsidy amount, and then there was another option that we participated in Spectra's success, and I think we chose the second, and looks like that was a good decision at this point. So very well done, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
I know there's still a lot of change, and still things are occurring.
Yeah.
Spectra is still very fresh to the building. Kyler's been able to do a lot of great work. The social media, Ally with social media has been able to really uptick some of the promotions and growth.
Yeah.
But there's just a lot going on with the Expo Center and how the management is growing. And just really congratulate you and your staff on the progress so far.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kellen.
I will certainly take that back. Thank you all.
Madam Clerk, our next item.
Item 2, unfinished business. Do I have to read it all? Number 1, consider approval of request for project budgets including or totaling $1,375,028.37, of which $1,360,949.30 utilizes excess funding. $412 utilizes earned income fund, and $113,667.07 utilizes operating budget as follows. A, Gage Park relamp project, including the horseshoe courts at an estimated cost of $64,323.31 from the operating budget. D, issuing a request for price proposals for an elevator at Shawnee North Community Center, price to be determined using excess funding. And E, various projects, equipment for parks and playgrounds within quadrants 1, 2, 3, and 4 at an estimated cost of $1,294,298, utilizing excess funding.
Good morning, Commissioners. John Knight, Parks and Recreation. This item was on Monday as well. I won't go through all of the items again. It appeared to me, and if I'm wrong, I'll back up and answer those questions, but the vast majority of the questions came about the $1.29 million worth of neighborhood parks. I believe Commissioner Archer asked for some brief summary of what they might see and some of the locations on there. Yes, sir.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, John, but yeah, the reason I asked for more information was so that the public would know where we're spending our money, what we're spending our money on, and what they can anticipate after we're completed with the individual management plan. So I'm sorry to interrupt, but that's why I asked for more information than you had originally given us.
I understand, and that's what the presentation I angled, so I did understand that, and I angled this presentation so almost directly at that. What you have here in front of you is basically the 17 different parks that we're going to address. We broke that down by our quadrants, just like the master plan suggested that we do. We track some of these things. As you can see, the quadrants are fairly equal except for quadrant 3, but that's not unusual because there are very few parks in quadrant 3. As you can see, quadrant number 1, which would be the north and west corner of Shawnee County, there's about $342,000 being invested there. Quadrant 2, which has the vast majority of our parcels of parks, is going to see an investment of $338,000. Quadrant 3, which is south and west, 55.5. And then also then quadrant 4, $424,000. Each of those parks, I kind of went into a little bit of an explanation on my presentation on Monday. Of the process we go through. It's the individual management planning committee that we have within our department. We look at several factors. Just because it's a park, and it was a park in the 1950s and when it was used heavily, doesn't mean that it still is today. There are several ones that the neighborhoods around them have aged, so we need to look at not necessarily coming back in with just, for instance, just some playground equipment. Maybe we need something for the demographics of that area. I think when we merged these departments, that was what I overheard the most, was people were okay with investing more and more into Parks and Rec. They just wanted to make sure it was looked at and done wisely. That's what was my take from some of that kind of stuff. With that being said, I can kind of go through each one of the parks on there, or I can just hit some highlights there. To start up, the number 1. Does this little light thing work? Nope.
Oh, you got turned on.
Yeah, all right. As you can see, number 1 is Collins Park. It's going to receive a pretty good investment because it had been a long time since we'd done anything major in there, and also a long time before the city had done anything when they had the park as well too. But what we plan to do there is replace some benches and playground equipment, install a bike rack, extend some of the concrete areas to the picnic tables, trash cans, some of those type of things, increase the lighting. As you know, at this time of the year, it starts to get darker and darker every night. Weather's still nice enough, you can be in the park at 7 o'clock, but not if there's no lights. And that also provides us some security as well, too. We're going to install an open-air shelter here in number 1. We're also going to replace some existing play equipment that had used up its useful life, and then replace a basketball and volleyball court to our staff's design specifications. We anticipate all of those improvements coming to around $209,850 for that park. Number 2 is Hughes Park. That's about 2 or 3 blocks away from Gage Park. The primary use of Hughes Park has changed quite a bit over the last few years. The city developed that park as one of its first play-for-all parks and had some play equipment for that in there. But if you've gone by Hughes Park now, there are still some kids using that, but there are also some kids 65 and up that just congregate there for the pickleball. We can't build enough pickleball there at that court, so some of the improvements that we're talking about there just really begin to dress some of that up and refresh a lot of the amenities in there. We're talking about replacing park benches, bike racks, even installing a dog waste station, replace drinking fountains, put fencing up around the pickleball courts, and replace a grill. We'll of course put some signage up, but we'll also replace picnic tables, and the play equipment there also has used up its useful life and needs to be replaced. A lot of these, when we put these playgrounds in, it's not just the cost of the playground, but we put the rubberized surfacing in because we found that to be less expensive overall than continuing to fill those areas with wood chips on an ongoing basis. Do you have any questions about Hughes Park?
Do the courts need to be resurfaced there, or are they in pretty good shape?
They are in pretty good shape, but we need to continue to watch that, and that may be something we come back in a future year and do those.
But right now, everything's playable?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The third park is Clarion Woods Park, which is down here in the southwest section. That one, I believe in my presentation on Monday, I had some pictures of that, but it was just a little, kind of a little pond area, everything getting overgrown around it. We've gone in and used several different funding sources to get to where we are, but, or where we want to be, state funding, grant funding, and those type of things to really build that park up and make it good again. But some of the other things that we're talking about doing there would be We need to begin to put some of the signage in to recognize some of the partners, Department of Wildlife and Parks, who helped us with fishing and water grants to help develop some of this. But we also want to add some lighting in there because it also makes a nice little, quiet little walk in the evening if you wanted to. Main park signs, and also this needs to have a new parking lot area, which is probably the big expense on that one. The city has gone through with an easement to begin to put in some power lines and some of those type of things in there. We really need to address the parking lot. Okay.
Archer?
Yeah, I will point out that the master plan indicated that quadrant 3 was really lacking in Parks and Rec amenities. As a result, we implemented or opened the Midwest Health Aquatics Center. One thing I want to point out that in that area, there's still about 60 acres that are unused. And I think as a long-term thought, Parks and Rec should be considering what additional amenity we can add to that area. And again, that's long-term. But I think the master plan specifically identified the south, and the population really is moving southwest. So I think we're doing a disservice to Parks and Rec patrons if we don't think about that area and what we can do in it in the long term.
To put your mind at ease, that is one of the next areas that we are going to address, is to try to perform some master planning services for Family Park, because that whole area in there could show a lot of development too.
Okay.
But at the same
Thank
time,
you, Mr. Chair.
the deferred maintenance, this money, these excess funds were to address our current parks. And Commissioner, you've addressed on multiple occasions that we have millions and millions of dollars of unmet needs and deferred maintenance. And so I think that as a commission, we've really tried to take a hard look at, before we engage in bold new projects, we try to address some of the current ones we already have.
And I agree. We absolutely do. I'm saying for a long-term, to address the needs of Parks and Rec patrons, we need to consider long-term how we're going to grow and what additional new projects that we're going to take over. But you're absolutely right, and that's what we're doing. We're spending a lot of money on deferred maintenance in specific areas of our community, and that's what we should be doing right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
The fourth park is Aaron Douglas Park. That's one of our little specialty parks right along 12th Street there. But it does need to be refreshed, and you can see on there there's some areas, some concrete needs to be replaced, but the interpretive signage that's there needs to be upgraded and brought back up to current standards. We're going to do that. We're also going to put up a new department sign for marketing and branding and for identification of the park. The main issues for that is we still want to leave vacant areas there, still want to leave those vacant because that is the host to a couple of big events, the Aaron Douglas Art Fair and a couple other events, and it'll just work out perfect there. I think we can also increase this with just some lighting, some key lighting, and some of the plantings that we do around there to really beautify that park quite a bit. Number 5 is Eastboro Park. This is one that's a pretty significant investment in. Eastboro Park is, again, this is one that's going to need all new amenities, new picnic tables, new benches, new trash receptacles, but it's also going to get quite a bit of concrete work. The IMP committee and our Design Services Committee feel it's real important that we put some of this concrete in. You may not notice that when in some parks, but if you'll see, we have picnic tables that are set on bare ground, they get hollowed out underneath them, then water gets in them, so after a quarter-inch rain overnight sometime, then the picnic table is unusable. It just really cleaned the park up, and if you put trash can out there in the grass, you'll kill the grass underneath it, so you move the trash can over a foot, now you got 2 big circles. The concrete just really will really finish these off and keep them looking good for many years. The other things that we're looking at doing here in Eastboro Park, besides replacing all of that, it also is going to get new play equipment as well too. Its play equipment has used up its useful life. The East Gate Park, they have Some of the big items there is they have a basketball court that is used heavily. And so we've decided to extend that a little bit so that we can have some age separation between the high school kids and the grade school kids so they can both play basketball there. The other things that we're doing on Eastgate Park, we're replacing some of the amenities there, the basketball goals, all of that stuff have used their useful life up as well too. But we'll do some signing and some of those type of things too. And the play equipment that is there does no longer meet current standards, so we're going to replace the play equipment that's there as well too. Huntoon Park, that's another one of our specialty parks. That's the one with the big wren in it that was also highlighted in the Harwoods trip this summer that went through on Rex Morgan, MD. I don't know if you guys saw that or not, but he stopped by and saw the world's biggest wren. I don't know if you didn't see that. I'll bring that to administrative communication. You don't read Rex Morgan, MD every morning, Commissioner Bueller? No, but it is a very, it's kind of defining for Topeka, that park. People know it's there. It's a very pretty park, but it also, it's not a place that we're going to put a bunch of playground equipment and stuff, but it does need to be refreshed. Some of the things that we're talking about doing there are basically putting up our sign and then addressing some of the other items like the relining the bricks and those type of things and really clean that park up. So the Potwin circles is another issue. That's the ones over here that looks like a domino over here. We have 8 tiny parks, but these are very important to the Potwin neighborhood. They're very important. People. It's not just the Potwin neighborhood, it's people that come from out of town to visit Potwin, the Potwin circles, the old Prairie Town. It's very important, and what the things that we're trying to do there is, what we want to do is make those so that they're less maintenance heavy. Things like adding irrigation to those so that they could come on periodically instead of the old practice of driving a great big water truck around and then having 2 or 3 staff drag hoses all over the neighborhood over there, I think would be some vast improvements. But we also need to install some benches, look at each of the traffic islands that we have there, and just really begin to dress those up with plantings. There also, we continue to work with the neighborhood over there. I think this is something that kind of fell behind. I wish we would have done this sooner, but we've been working with them, and I think we'll be able to have what it is the community and the whole city wants over there in a short amount of time.
Commissioners, I might add, the Neighborhood Association makes significant contributions every year towards the plantings, they have a crew that would go out and help do some of the weeding.
Yes.
Heavy investment from the community, but the irrigation really costs the county much more in the time and labor with the water truck than if we just had the irrigation there that would be able to shut on and off. And we do have a lot of visitors to the community that drive through as part of their economic drive for our community.
Well, I think that's a good point. Potwin, and I think most neighborhoods that have parks are partners with us in keeping them up and providing safety and taking care of the
We've also tended to notice the more that we invest, the more that the neighborhood will invest, and it'll be kind of a ongoing improvements of everything. So.
Yeah, and I think that's important to note. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Willow Park, we have down for $87,000 worth of improvements. Willow Park's the park that's right there by the St. Francis Hospital. It's just to the north of St. Francis. It's kind of a triangle-shaped park. It's got a drainage area that goes through the middle of it and a couple of 4-foot wide sidewalks that just either need to be replaced. But we also we'll replace those with a standard 8 or 10-foot type sidewalk so that people can use those. But it also, the play equipment there needs to be refreshed, plus all of the picnic tables, amenities, and all of those type of things as well too. That's a very visible park. Because if you take your eyes off the road, we've had a few people drive into our flower bed there, so I know it's very, very visible. But we have put stone retaining walls up, so we have a fighting chance now in those battles. Some of the other big improvements here is Austin Park, which is number 10 here on this list, which is over near Adams, about 23rd and Adams. The Austin Park is a neat little park that's used a lot. Every time I go by there, there's numerous cars, numerous people there. But what we want to do there is that the basketball courts have they've dilapidated into. They just need to be torn out and replaced. We need to, of course, all of these parks we're replacing picnic tables, benches, water fountains, all of those type of amenities. But we want to add some other things too, because there's a heavy use of bicycles there, so we want to add some bike racks over there. Of course, put up some more signage, but then begin to replace some of the playground equipment and do some work on the shelter house that's over there in Austin Park. The Bentley Park is not far away. It's about 3 or 4 blocks away. Bentley Park is a small park. Basically, we're just going to go in and replace some of the worn amenities, picnic tables, those type of things, and put some of our signage up. Number 12 is Betty Dunn Park, which is formerly Adams Park, which is about, what is that, about 31st and Adams. We still need to we have done some improvements recently over there, but we still need to do some concrete work to install the pads for the trash cans, benches, those type of things, and then put in the safety surfacing underneath the playground equipment that we put in last year. The Lynn Bloom Park is a park that is kind of landlocked right here off of 45th Street. Short of being able to gain some other property here, working with neighbors for some type of easement. The main use for this may be sometime in the future is I could see setting that aside and using that as a water quality project for all of Lake Shawnee. Besides Deer Creek, which is the main feeder of Lake Shawnee. This is another a direct feeder into Lake Shawnee, and if we could get the water, the silt, all of the contaminants contained in here go in, this would be a lot less expensive to dredge this out every few years and help maintain the quality of Lake Shawnee. But that's a big project and much more than the 1.2 that I put in front of you this morning. So right now we're actually recommended that we do nothing there. Major Palm Park used to be, in its heyday, used to be a tremendous park for softball and was used a lot over there. We're looking at trying to when we looked at the demographics of the neighborhood and some of those type of things, we noticed that there's a lot of young families, a lot of people living in the apartment complexes. There's several of those right around there, and we're seeing a lot of use for small families and also people with pets. What we're wanting to do there, of course, again, I'm repeating myself, but change out all the amenities. But we also want to then begin to look at upgrading the lighting there. We already have lights there for the ball diamonds, but again, this time of the year, if we put a low energy usage lighting into some of those kind of things, people then could use some of the ball fields for their pets. They could also have a nice little walk right in there, and we also then want to put in new safety surfacing and replace the playground equipment that is already existing in Major Palm.
That's right off 37th Street, I think.
Yes.
Could you point that out and make sure?
37th Street, but it's almost right up to I-70.
Right.
Yeah, very visible park, and could be used a lot more if we put some of this kind of stuff in. Okay. Matthews Park is Matthews Park is out here just off of Lake Shawnee. There's not much in that. We're not recommending at this time to do anything with it other than just kind of clean it up. Our staff spend some time over there, but no major improvements. Number 16 is Robinson Park. If you remember, that was the donation that we received a few years ago, because this park then butts up against Dornwood Park, which is over here. When the Robinson family donated that money, in that land to us some of the improvements that we had made them believe that we were going to put in were some things like some parking lots, some of those type of things. So we want to begin to put some of that in and also begin to prepare, because I can see eventually that the trail that the County Commission, the Deer Creek Extension, should come down and wind up to 25th Street, but a future extension could easily come right up here to 29th Street, and hopefully with the road work that we're doing, all of that road work on 29th Street, that would give you a connection from Lake Shawnee to the entire network of trails, eventually. Terra Heights is a small little park down here. There's a trailer court down in here. It is not. It is used a lot by small children, young families, and the things that we're talking about doing there are installing a sign right now and spending some time just kind of dressing it up and cleaning it up. I can go into more detail on any of these parks if you'd like. I can go into detail on some of the first 4 items that Ms. Beck read a little bit ago. Be happy to answer any other questions you may have.
Any questions? Commissioner Bueller? Commissioner Archer, anything?
I hope Tim got all of this information, because I think it is important that the public know, and I'm personally excited about the upgrades and the deferred maintenance that we're taking care of with this this project summary. So
I also think it's important too that you guys know that this IMP committee that we have put together works extremely hard to look at all these demographics. If we have a park that's right across the street from a school and just down the block from a church, both of them have playground equipment in it. Seems kind of silly for us to put taxpayer money playground in when they have 1 feet away. Those type of things is what they're looking at. The demographics, the age of neighborhoods, who's using those parks. They look at all of those type of functions as well too.
yeah, so the IMP really is a smart approach.
Yes.
And I'm happy to do that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And John, this also had input from the advisory board, and the advisory board members.
Advisory board members, also Daryl Stewart, our community outreach person, has talked with a lot of the neighborhoods there. I don't know that we've gotten to everybody on that, but we could follow this meeting up with some other public engagement as well too.
At this time, are there any public comments regarding this presentation? You'll come on up and.
Oh, I'm sorry.
My name is Leslie Prentice. My address is 4020 Southeast 37th Street, Topeka. And I wasn't really going to comment because I love the Parks and Rec. Hopefully that will temper some of my comments. But thank you, Mr. Archer, for asking about pickleball, because I am a pickleball player. And I have to disagree that the surface of those courts is, one court you can't play at all because the surface is missing in part of it. And they're very, very slick. And a lot of pickleball players go out and squeegee them with their own equipment. And I'm not saying, you know, we love children in their parks, and I don't want to see that taken away. But we had heard, and I was really excited that they were going to, there's only 2 Johnny on the jobs out there, and the parking is very small. So what happens is, like this is the park, we park all along here, and we try to stay away from the residents' parking lots. But we do line that entire street. And actually one night we had to break up a wacky guy killing his dog. So you've got seniors out there who are wonderful people. It's a mixed neighborhood, and it's a good thing to have seniors out there. But anyway, we would like to see, anyway, I would, I'm not speaking on behalf of anyone but myself, resurfacing. And I had actually submitted a petition to Mr. Knight I proposed making some of the Shawnee tennis courts into pickleball courts. Like 2 of them you could make into 8 pickleball courts. And that's a real low-use area. I live out there. But he informed me that there's a contract with Shawnee Heights for the use of those courts for tennis tournaments. But it's too bad because there's restrooms, there's huge parking, there's lights, which we don't have at Hughes, and seniors play all day, and they play in the evening, and sometimes we're out there in the dark. We just had the senior games last weekend, and oh my gosh, we used every court, and we had people from Oklahoma. I think we may have had somebody from Arizona, but people come from out of town. Eldana Coates, who's the guru of pickleball in Topeka, could tell you anything about it. She's got a huge list of people interested in pickleball. So anyway, I was going to say, so the parking is a problem. The restrooms, just too Johnny on the jobs for seniors. That's particularly bad. And I think that's all I have. Thank you very much. And thank you for spending money on the parks, because I've been here 40 years. I was on the first co-rec softball team meeting. My husband's still playing softball. We love Topeka Parks and Rec. It's a jewel. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I might address that. The actual sport courts is done not through the same group that improves our parks. We have a sports division that is looking at all of our sport courts, so it is quite possible that we come back in and look at several of these sport courts going forward, because I have a lot of tennis courts around that people, tennis isn't played in much anymore, but we couldn't build enough pickleball courts. I was down at Rock Chalk Park over in Lawrence, and I started talking to some guys playing pickleball inside Rock Chalk. And I asked them, I said, we were thinking about trying to increase our pickleball play in Topeka, and they go, we wish you would, because we're driving over here from Topeka to play. So, there you go. So, sorry, I didn't mean to get off track.
Any other public comment regarding this proposal? Is there a motion regarding it?
I'll move to approve the request.
Second.
Motion to approve the request by Commissioner Archer, second by Commissioner Bueller. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, passes 3-0.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, our next item.
Item 3, consent agenda.
There are 3 items on the consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Archer, second by Commissioner Bueller. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item 4, new business. A, County Clerk number 1, consider all voucher payments.
Vouchers are totaling $1,241,211.62. We have a large purchase under the Sheriff's Office for Chevy Tahoes totaling $146,209. Under federal grant, Conroy Contractors for the Gage Park Fitness Trail, $61,180. And then under county projects, we have 2 projects at, one is for carpet in the courts, and one is for Johnson Controls in the AC unit at Ag Hall, $40,787.80. And if there are no questions, I'll move approval.
Motion for approval by Commissioner Bueller.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Archer. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item A2, consider correction orders.
I'll move for approval of the correction orders.
Second.
Motion for approval by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Bueller. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item B, County Councilor number 1, update on the Kansas Expo Center renovation project.
Good morning, Commissioners. Zach Sneathan, HDK Architects. Here for the third Thursday update on what we're doing on the Kansas Expo Center project, and also within this we'll be seeking approval for the design development phase as we move forward into construction documents in terms of finishing up the drawings. How do I switch? I have, as part of the packet, there was the entire design development submittal, short of presenting all 240 pages of it. I'll pull out a few, just some snapshots of where we're at and what we're working on the project. As you saw at our last meeting, last presentation, talking about the development of that new lobby addition, kind of the new front door of the Expo Center. So that's what you'll see up here is that imagery, and then we're working on further development of that, the details, and working towards construction on that.
Zach, I might note that the entire plan is online.
Correct.
As part of the agenda packet, and if it is approved, I would move that we would want, or hope that we can move it, or ask that we move it to a more accessible spot than just the agenda packet for the public to be able to look at.
Correct, yeah, it is. Yes, it is, and I had somebody actually ask where it's at, and I pointed them to the link to download it at. So there are people that are looking at it. But yes, it's the entire current working drawings, about 240 pages. That has the architectural, the civil engineering, structural, mechanical, AV, kitchen equipment, all that in detail as at the current status of the project. But today, I'll kind of step through just a few. Overall, we're working through logistics of access, site, renovation of the parking lot, the utilities, working with the city, the PUD, amending the current PUD on the Expo Center grounds, and looking at just further development of all the utilities, new utilities, and parking and drive and access to that. I will say that with this update, there's been really no major changes in the scope. And with that, there's been no major changes in the budget assumptions that were made previously in the schematic design. We're really this is just working further details, and to date, we've not really encumbered anything that is outside of what we expected. So, and there's not, other than additional detail, it's additional detail to the plans. As you remember, just real briefly, that addition that we're talking about on the front of the Expo Center down here. There are renovations throughout in the restrooms, concession stands, seating, development up on the concourse level, development of some of those patron amenities, working with Spectra and their team over there to really understand, as you heard about their sponsorship opportunities, really looking at what will these renovations in terms of the concession stands and the suites and the additional seating amenities, what will they be able to do with those from a revenue standpoint, from a sponsorship standpoint. So really working really weekly with Kellen and all of his team to develop these details. Their food service providers and other users continuing to provide input on the development of the plans. Next slide. Again, the expansion of the exhibition hall, 30,000 square foot expansion to the north, and then basically a service core of restrooms and a concession stand that support that area. The one change that we did discuss is, instead of connecting directly into the hotel here, we are connecting into, it made more sense structurally to connect into the link as opposed to directly into the hotel. And then same with the Domer expansion, the equestrian expansion, similar, just continuing on development of that. It's the similar scope that we had discussed before. I do want to share just as we look at development of these spaces, primarily in the land and arena, the renovation of the existing concession stands, some new concession stands, some new what's called the end zone bar and loge seating down at the southwest end of the arena. Start to show some of the graphics and how those are evolving, working with Kyler really heavily at the Expo Center, and we toured the Silverstein Arena in Independence, Missouri, and saw it's a Spectra managed facility. Saw some things that we liked, saw some things that we didn't like over there in terms of some of the efforts that they're locally, or Kellen and his team are doing locally to bring sponsorship and branding into it. But looking at these kind of a brand refresh on the existing concession stands, and they're developing some kind of a Main Street affair of along there of concession stands, and standardizing some signage that and then the overall kind of just the front facade of those existing concession stands. Just kind of a view of development drawings of those concession stands. These are the existing concession stands, and they're essentially getting a facelift to them. primarily with signage and then some materials down on the front of it. The concession stands themselves will generally be, continue to be the concession stands, supported by then some additional concession stands, kind of currently at the new northeast entrance, developing 2 large concession stands flanking that entrance, what will be the main entrance, that 2 large concession stands, but are able to, in talking with both Spectra and then also their food service provider, and looking at how can we start to have a large concession stand, but then brand it, so essentially the windows are branded to a specific food fair or something. So this is a concept of basically a craft beer concession stand that will have reach-in coolers, have additional amenities for beverages within the facility, but also starting to bring in some branding, some character to that to those concession stands. Looking down at that in-zone bar, that's really taking that south end of the bowl there and creating what we discussed, the loge seating that's additional amenity seating for the expo center, creating an in-zone bar area there that would be an additional concession stand area, primarily serving drinks there, that would serve people from the concourse level, but then also would service to the loge seating that's in that area. So that's kind of jump back to those. Those are just a glimpse of some of the images that you'll find in the overall packet. Again, as I jump over to the at a glance that you saw last time, since there's been no major changes in scope as we work through this, to date there's no change in the current assumptions on the budget. I will say the 2 projects that are under construction, the HVAC project and the boiler replacement project, are both set to complete next month. They will complete under the original estimated budget, and in talking to Kellen's staff, they're very happy. Matt Rockers over there is very happy with the equipment that's going in and the controllability that they'll have with that new equipment, especially with the boilers. We went from if you remember, one large boiler that did the whole facility to 6 smaller boilers, and they'll be able to turn boilers, and they're much more efficient boilers in that, and they'll be able to turn boilers off and on based on where they're used in the facility. So overall, between that and the HVAC improvements, replacements in Exhibition Hall, should see significant savings in just general energy consumption with the completion of those projects. The other projects, again, still similarly conceived in how they could be executed. We are also working through the process of selecting a construction manager for the project. There were 5 firms that submitted on that. There will be, and then subsequently one has sent a notice that they've backed out of it. So we will be interviewing 4 construction manager firms at the first part of October, with the intent to select and then bring them on board to really dive into further analysis of the budgeting and the constructability, and really start to work towards if you will, a groundbreaking for the overall improvements. So with that, I will stand for any questions. I think it's a separate agenda item to seek approval of the design development package.
Any questions from Zach regarding the update? Okay. Madam Clerk, our next item.
Item 2, B2, consider approval of the design development phase related to the Kansas Expo Center renovation project.
Good morning, Commissioners. Zach's presentation was a lead into this item, which is seeking your approval of the design development information that you've been provided. The cover memo sort of walks you through the steps we've taken to date to get to this point. And since Zach just reviewed those items, I'll turn it over to you and be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions from Jim? Commissioner Archer?
From what I understand, as far as the budget, it looks like we're $3.5 million over without a funding source that I know of.
And as we've discussed last time when we discussed this item, that's the architect's estimates of everything we'd like to see.
So again, Tim, we are not over budget.
We have asked that the architects design these items, give us estimates on these items. We've asked the architect to estimate high, so that we hopefully will stay under on those. As Zach indicated, the two projects, the boiler and HVAC projects that we've already started, we're under budget, so we're hoping that continues. We have an opportunity for further refinement in the numbers once we bring the construction manager on board. To your point, at the end of that process, there will be a final number as to what these items are going to cost, and then it'll come back to this commission to decide if that number is over what's in the budget, how we're going to close that gap. And we're either going to close that gap by finding an alternative additional funding source, or we're going to close that gap by cutting items out of the construction plan to reach that budget.
But as of today, there's not been any change since the last presentation.
No.
The big piece, the construction manager at risk, that will be a pretty defining term as to some of our costs.
Correct. I mean, that's at the point where they will be working with HTK on these items, may have additional, before we even bid out, some cost-saving ideas. Isn't that generally how it works? So they're working hand in hand with the architects on coming up with the plan, and then once they bid out, we'll have the firm numbers.
But we will not, I mean, once they're selected, that will bring them on board to start working through that process, and at a later date, probably towards the end of the year, we'll identify that guaranteed maximum price for the project, and that will be kind of a culmination of their estimating, but then also bidding out projects.
So, and then we will have what will be a firm number.
Correct,
Because
yes.
this is estimate, fictitious, what have you,
It is,
at this point.
yes, it is our best assessment of the costs related to the scope of work.
Okay, but we will have an opportunity to review actual numbers and make decisions on funding or eliminating pieces of the project.
Correct, yeah, I mean,
Before, okay.
yeah, yes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair, that's my concern.
And I think that it's important to note that if we were to take a look at, again, the Willard Bridge project, the Willard Bridge was estimated a bit much higher amount, but the contractor, had a very favorable term that entered for their price of resources. And then if we look at some other projects, we see projects routinely in the paper that go above what they estimate due to, again, scarcity of resources or costs and supplies.
Yeah, it's estimated. Estimated is in all caps in a couple different places. The only actual is the financing cost. Is that correct? The $7,490,491. That's
Yes.
the only actual amount on there right now. Okay. Thank you.
I would make a motion to approve the design development phase.
A second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Bueller. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0.
Thank you.
Our next item.
Item C, Parks and Recreation. Number 1, consider authorization and execution of contract C-291-2018 with Daltmeyer Roofing for the replacement of roofs on the Gage Park Party House, Lake Shawnee Shelter Number 2, Garden House, and Reynolds Lodge at a cost of $39,356.55 with funding from the Capital Maintenance 3R Fund.
Good morning, Commissioners. Randy Luby with Parks and Recreation.
As you recall, this past May, you gave us approval to go out for bids for these roofing projects. The bids came in, and we, Daltmeyer Roofing was the lowest, most responsive bidder. You can see the other bids there. It's a Certainty presidential shake shingle. It looks a lot like a wooden shingle, only it's an asphalt shingle, which is a lot more fire resistant. Be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Randy?
I'll move to approve the contract.
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Archer, second by Commissioner Bueller. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item C2, consider authorization and execution of contract C292-2018 with Professional Engineering Consultants, PA, and Falk Architects, Inc., amendment to contract C367-2017 for the extension of a one-year term expiring November 30th, 2019, for on-call architectural and engineering services.
Good morning, Commissioners. Randy Luby again. We're just looking to extend this contract for PEC and Falk Architects. It's worked out really well for us this past year. It helps us facilitate future designs of capital improvement projects as well as replacement projects. And we still follow all the purchasing resolution that's set forth by the county. I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions regarding this item? I'll move approval.
I'll second.
Motion for approval by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Bueller. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Our next item.
Item 5, administrative communications.
This is an opportunity for any department head or member of the public to address the commission on any item.
Good morning, Commissioners. Angela Lewis with Human Resources. I'm coming on behalf of the Wellness Committee. We have partnered with the City of Topeka to bring mobile mammography back again on September 24th. This time we've opened it up to dependents who are eligible for our benefits as well. September 24th from 8 to 5, the mobile mammography unit will be out in the front parking lot in front of the courthouse. And we encourage anyone who hasn't had their mammogram this year to call in and set an appointment. If you don't have time to set an appointment, they will take walk-ins. Are there any questions?
No. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Good morning again, Commissioners. Since we last addressed the comprehensive plan, Joni Thadani and Megan Barrett have been working hard in my office to get those edits in place. Those are now online. So if you go to the county website and you go online, you'll see two documents. You'll see a redlined version that will show the changes that we're recommending based upon the direction from the commission, and then you'll see a clean version if those changes were adopted by the Board of County Commissioners. So I just want to announce that to the public. You can go to the website and find those.
Planning, at the Planning Department is where those documents are?
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Can we,
Go ahead.
if I may, can we have it more prominent? Perhaps, when you first log on, now we're getting Awesome Q or something. Could we have that as the #1 item?
We'll talk to Pat and see if we can
Because I
get
think
that done.
that's a major item we're working on, and I think that's, public's got a tremendous amount of interest in it. So it may be a centerpiece, I think, as far as the website goes.
We'll try to get that done.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Carol Marple. I'd like to just go back to the expo for a minute, and I just had a question. I thought HTK's fees were already set, that they got a little over $3 million. And then my other question is, does the construction manager's fee come out of their fees also?
If you're looking at the amount that's listed on the graph, it's part of item B2. Jim, could you maybe just,
The HTK fees were last amended by the BCC on August 2nd, 2018, so we didn't change fees today for HTK. And the construction manager fees would be separate from HTK's fees.
Thank you. All right. Any other administrative communications this morning?
Good morning, Commissioners. Brian Cole, Shawnee County Department of Corrections. I just wanted to announce that tomorrow we will have our Basic Officers Academy. We'll be graduating, I believe, anywhere pretty close to about almost 20 officers. We'll get them back on the floor. We've had overtime covering for them, which is be good to get them out, but after 2 weeks of academy, that'll be good. But I also want to let you know, we started with almost, we were over 40 vacancies. We're down, we've hired about 8 of those vacancies, and we've got about almost 25 applicants in the hiring process. So we're moving very hard. We're being very diligent about getting out and marketing and doing a lot of different things. So we've got a lot going on, and we're hoping that we can make a big dent into the vacancies at the department with this next group. So I just wanted to give you that update. And the commissioners, the graduation's tomorrow at the Department of Corrections. I know your schedules are very busy, but we do hope you'll be able to make it at 4 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Commissioner Archer, anything?
No, I'm good. Thank you. Have a nice weekend.
Anything?
It is homecoming week at Hayden, so I will be at the homecoming festivities. So sorry, I can't make that, but please extend our congratulations.
Well, we do have a special occasion today, and we waited to the very end. I understand, Ms. Beck.
That was on his, I was going to, you weren't in here, I'm going to put little notices when you make a vote. We're going to judge your votes because we're on the live streaming. They have our table on all the time. So we're going to get little things, and after you make a vote, we're going to, So I'm thinking this one gets a 1.
Ms. Beck, happy birthday today.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
And so we hope that you are able to make it a good one.
Hey, listen.
You started out here.
They coming. They
can only
keep
go
coming.
up.
I'm to the point where, it's 29. Just stay at the 29. You get to a certain age and it's just, we're good. But I had to go to the drugstore yesterday afternoon, and I had to buy something for my aching knee, and I had to buy something for my aching shoulder, and then I just had to buy something that was like, I bought a couple little fall candy dishes. And when I took to the counter, I told the guy, I said, when you get to be my age, you just can't go into any store and just only buy things for your aches and pains. You have to buy something to make yourself feel good, too. And she was happy because I spent twice as much money that I needed to spend, but I was okay. I felt better at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Our next item.
Item 6, executive sessions.
There is not a need for an executive session today. We are adjourned.
Now, this one and this one.